Now that we've learned the basics of using constraints, let's run through a more complete sketch and see how these constraints can help us. So I have this basic shape here, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. So I might just start by double tapping on an endpoint, and again remember that selects all of my endpoints. So now I can drag to move this whole shape wherever I'd like. Just a tip that I like to do sometimes is throw your endpoints, one of your endpoints, onto your origin point. Now, this is just a personal preference. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I find it quite useful just to keep a good reference point for yourself when creating your sketches and designs. And so if I want now that endpoint to always be locked in on my origin point, I'd of course select that endpoint and use the lock constraint. Notice the endpoint has turned black, indicating that I'm locked in there. Now let's try throwing in a few more constraints. Maybe this line here I'd like to be vertical. I'm just going to use the horizontal vertical constraint and see my vertical line constraint coming in. Similarly, this line I may like to be horizontal. I'll just throw in a few more. I'll select these two lines, and I'd like those two lines to be parallel with each other. So I'll throw in a parallel constraint, and already you can see this general sketch taking shape. I might just finish it off here with some tangencies. So I'll select this line and this arc and add a tangency constraint. And similarly on the other side, this line and this arc, throw in that same tangency constraint. Now you can see how constraints can be used to fully constrain and define, help finish off your sketches. And what's useful about this is now you can see my whole closed sketch is constrained. So if I were to move or edit any of those points, notice that all of my constraints are maintained. Now that we have a good understanding of the basics of constraints, in the next few lessons we'll learn how to add in dimensions to help finish off our sketches.